Hey everyone, welcome back to ASM Track Tips. My name's Tomo Gorman, and today we're talking about Lime Rock Park, the littlest big boy track you've ever seen. It's in Lakeville, Connecticut. It is 1.5 miles, only 7 corners, but they're all pretty fast, so this one's going to be a lot of fun. All right, here's our track map of Lime Rock Park, and a couple notes before we jump in. First, you'll note this track is one of the only ones around where all the corners are named rather than numbered. So if you want to memorize these 7 names, that's going to do you well. If you show up to Lime Rock asking where turn 3 is, people might look at you funny. The second note is we're going to talk about the gutter a lot, or what I call the gutter, and that's basically the section of the track that's right up against the curb. And here at Lime Rock, you're going to want to tuck the car up against the curb in that gutter a lot, in a lot of the corners here. So when you hear me talk about that, just know that I mean tucked up against the curb, but not actually using the curb in that little gutter that it creates. And lastly, the curbs here around Lime Rock are very steeply raised and then flat on top, and they're also made out of concrete, which is really grippy. So some of the curbs are actually very useful, especially for certain cars, and other curbs, because of that steep rise, you want to stay off completely. So we'll talk about which curbs are friendly around the track. So we're starting off our short but busy lap here at Lime Rock on the front straightaway. It's actually pretty long considering the track's only 1.5 miles. And we want to get the car all the way to the left side of the track, and just past the start-finish line down towards the pit out, there are 6 brake markers, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, getting us towards, there's a bridge across the track just at the turn in for Big Bend at turn 1. So getting down towards Big Bend, this is actually a decreasing radius double apex corner. And what that means for us is we can brake really, really late and carry our entry speed deep into the corner rather than needing to have our braking done before we turn in. So our brake markers are going to actually be somewhere towards the 3 and the 2 rather than braking back at the 5 or the 6. We have a lot of speed coming in, but we can brake really, really late, and the slowing down phase is going to happen from right around here all the way down into the corner here. So as we approach turn 1, or Big Bend, we're going to get our braking done, heavy threshold braking, but right about the 1 board, or even just before the 1 board, we're going to want to angle the car across the track towards this first apex at the inside curb under the bridge. So if you see that diagonal line, we're just going to gently guide the car across the track, adding a little bit of steering angle, and we're actually just going to increase that steering angle as we get into the corner to tuck up against this first curb, getting down into that gutter that we talked about with our right side tires right against the inside curb. You will see some people use this inside curb, but I think that is generally not preferred for most cars. It's going to upset the car and spit you out a little bit wider than you want to be. I like to tuck just up against the inside curb. Now that curb is going to start back here, and then we'll round into the corner. You want to end up basically next to it as it's rounding into the corner through the first phase of Big Bend. There will be some pretty significant trail braking and using the corner to start to scrub your speed as you start to come into Big Bend. Once you get tucked up against that curb, you're basically going to cut distance through the entire corner, and it's going to continue to decrease in radius all the way until the second apex down here at the exit of Big Bend. If anything, you're going to let the car track out maybe a car width here right in the middle, but you're going to be using a lot of maintenance throttle, maybe dancing the pedals just a little bit, tucking the nose with a dab of brake to get to the second apex, where this curb starts just about here at the second apex. So while some cars may take a little bit of a brake, other cars may just take a lift. And this is our first friendly curb just on the inside here. Definitely for front-wheel drive cars and for certain rear-wheel drive cars as well. You're going to want to get the right side tires up on top of the flat top of this inside curb. And because this corner actually has quite a bit of camber here, this curb actually feels flat rather than feeling like it has a rise. So you're going to want to cross onto it really, really early and use that grippy concrete to pull the front end of the car through the corner. You're definitely going to want to use that trick in a front-wheel drive car. You might play with it with a rear-wheel drive car, but it doesn't work nearly as efficiently with a rear-wheel drive car. So as soon as you've gotten the car up onto or next to this inside curb, we're going to pick up the power and track out to the left, where we have a short run up towards the left-hander at turn 2. Feel free to use all the exit curbing here on your left, but you're going to continue your trajectory back to the middle of the track. And now we reach our first corner, where we have a couple of options on what we want to do depending on what your car prefers coming into this left-hander. So our first option in the left-hander is what I'm going to call the racing line. And this option basically gets you to the middle of the track coming off of Big Bend. You're going to turn back to the left very, very early, and you're going to double apex the left-hander. Brake pretty hard, come across the grass with the left side of the tires just here. You're going to wash out maybe a half a car width and then tuck in again for a very, very late apex up against this ripple curb at the exit of the left-hander. The second option I'm going to call the school line. This is what you would get taught if you were there for some sort of curriculum more often than not. And this is going to be a little bit more of a straight braking zone off to the outside of the track and then round you down to a very late apex at the ripple curbs here on the exit. So you're either diving to the grass on the inside or braking towards the grass on the outside. And what I find is most cars prefer the racing line. First, it also defends your inside when you're actually racing. But it will kind of cut the distance out of the left-hander, and most cars are pretty content with that. The only times that it won't are if you're in a car that doesn't like to do steady state cornering. You're going to want to slow down to the outside and then tuck in for a very late apex. If you're in maybe a muscle car or a heavy front engine, front wheel drive car that doesn't like to turn very much, that's the situation where that would pay off. But if you notice, both of these lines took us to a super late apex up against and on top of the ripple curbing exiting the left-hander. And that's because we're setting up for turn 3, the right-hander, where we're going to be crossing the track from the left to the right, getting us up onto the second longest straight on the track, no name straight. So either way, no matter what you've done through this phase of the left-hander, really, you want to end up on the left side of the track, parallel to this bit of grass here. There's often some dirt that's kicked up where people are setting all the way up to the left. That's where you want the car to be. Now, before we get to the right-hander, right in this transition phase between the left and the right-hander is your opportunity to slow the car down. If you need to do a lift or a brake, do it in the middle between here while your hands are centered, rather than doing it into the corner. If you charge the right-hander and you miss the corner just a little bit, you've hurt yourself all the way down no name straight. Versus if you just check up a little bit here, you might have underslowed the entry for right-hander, but you can still get a really good exit. So make sure you're checking up earlier rather than later for the right-hander. Now, after we've done any amount of speed dissipation that we need, the right-hander is actually extremely on camber. You get a lot of elevation helping you through this corner. Definitely want to stay off of this curb. You do not want to touch it at all. So we're going to tuck in right against that gutter, right down at the apex, and use all of that camber as much as possible to sling the car through the right-hander and track out. Something that I've found that helps getting me into the right-hander is a much more aggressive turn-in, kind of utilizing the weight transfer into the right-hander rather than just trying to turn in gradually. If you can set the car hard down on the left side of the tires and flick the car into the right-hander, usually that kind of doubles up with the camber and really slingshots you through the corner rather than dealing with just trying to use the steering wheel through there. Now, as we get towards the exit, the camber goes away pretty quickly. So as you can see, as you will see in the video, the car will hook up through the middle of the corner and then float to the outside really, really aggressively. That's something to be aware of, and you don't want to touch the outside curbing here on your left because it is some of that ripple curbing, and that will tend to float the car or maybe make you want to rotate across the track. So you want to get right up against the outside curbing, but not onto it on the left here, exiting the right-hander before getting onto no name straight. Now that we're up onto this quote-unquote straightaway, you should be able to draw a pretty straight line from the left side of the track here, across the apex of no name, and then down to the left side to end up parallel with the track here. You shouldn't need a lot of meandering around left and right through this no name straight. So now we're getting into the second half of the lap where the elevation really starts to kick in. This half of the track right here is all on the top of a hill, and the rest of the track is on the bottom of a hill. So we're going to go uphill at one point and we're going to go back downhill at one point. And the key with these 3 corners to finish off the lap is apex speed matters the most. These are very gradual corners. They're very medium brake pressure. You want to get your braking done before the corner, get back to maintenance throttle through the corner, and then power out of the corner for each of these. If you have a higher apex speed with a lower entry or exit speed, that's still going to pay off most times in all of these 3 corners, the uphill, west bend, and downhill. So first off, probably the most fun on the track, the uphill. We're going to be on the far left of the track here, coming up next to a curb that's going to be on your left side. And the turn-in point for the uphill is going to be about halfway down that curb. So as you're halfway along that curb in duration, that's where your point is to turn in. You don't want to be on that curb. You want to be just next to it. And again, get your braking done before the turn-in point. You should be releasing the brake at turn-in rather than trying to trail brake up into the uphill. So having gotten our turn-in done, it feels pretty early, and we want to tuck either up into the gutter of the curb on the inside or use all of the curb on the inside. Get up onto the flat portion on the top. It's going to be dependent on your car, and I think most cars are happy to not hit the curb, but you definitely, if you're going to hit the curb, do it intentionally. Get the right side tires up on the top of it, so that it's a nice smooth cross up onto the top of the curb and back off of the curb, rather than just kissing the curb. That will launch the car to the left side. So now we've got our turn in and we're tucked up against the curb. The next thing to think about with the uphill is the uphill elevation actually happens right here. So most of the corner is actually on a flat or just slightly uphill portion. The significant rise happens at the very, very end of this corner, which means we can carry a ton of speed on the way in and rely on the elevation change to catch the car right at the very end of the corner. And it is a very uncomfortable feeling, but once you get the muscle memory down to trust that rise, you can start to carry so much speed up into this uphill corner and trust that the elevation will catch the car right at the very end. And you'll start to really run people down through here. Now, the wider you run, the more the uphill is going to catch you. So you can actually start to overshoot the corner just a little bit. And the sweet spot is going to be crossing the track limits line, that white line on your left, with just the left side tires and getting the right side tires up towards it, but kind of straddling that line as we come over the crest. There is extra pavement off to the left before the wall. You're going to use all of that with the left side of the car that you need. As the car goes light up over the crest, you're going to want to manage the throttle a little bit to minimize the wheel spin, and then the car will land. And if you've nailed that straddling of the white line, you should land with just enough time to get the car back on the track as that extra pavement runs out before the grass comes in. If you run too wide, you're going to get a little bit of grass, but really just keep your hands straight, stay calm, and get the car back on the track. If you underdrive this corner, the elevation will actually catch the car less than it should. So really, momentum is your friend using this uphill, using the elevation to your advantage there. Now things are really flying at us pretty quick here as we come from the uphill down towards West Bend. And West Bend is probably the toughest corner on the track because there's 0 reference points on the entry of the corner. You're really just going to have to do some repetition, and the good news is you're going to get to this point on the track every minute or so. So you get a lot of practice for every session that you go on track, but you're going to have to time your turn-in point just enough to tuck into the gutter on the curb at West Bend, and then time your braking accordingly. So you're going to almost start with the turn-in and work your way back rather than starting with a braking point and working your way in. And that's pretty tricky, so West Bend's tough. 2 tricks that I've learned here in West Bend. First one starts with the curbing on your inside. It should start just here as the curb starts, as the corner starts, excuse me, and it will kind of carry one trajectory here. There's a point where it sticks out the most, and then it changes angles and tucks in again. You want to time your turn in so that the car will tuck up against the second part of that curb. If you come across the front side of the curb before that portion where the curb sticks out, you're likely going to hit that small point and get bumped out to the outside. So a slightly later apex here, just ever so slightly by inches, is really going to pay off here in West Bend rather than turning in early. And again, just time your braking off of that. You're going to get your braking done just before turn in. The second trick for West Bend is using the bridge that crosses the track between the final 2 corners to your advantage for your vision. If you can turn in and start to look way ahead to find this bridge, the left side of that bridge, that tells you where the car is going to end up crossing underneath and give you a better idea of the space you have to work with as you come through West Bend. Again, apex speed matters the most here, so if you can just kind of trick your eyes into finding that exit and float your speed through West Bend here, that's going to pay off. And 1 corner to go. We're going to dive straight back downhill, super aggressive under the bridge, and we're going to stay on power over that crest, down the hill, and the downhill portion ends right about here. So just like the uphill, most of the corner is on the flat bottom part. Downhill is also, most of it is on the bottom of the downhill, not actually in the downhill itself. So we're going downhill for this quick phase here, and right as the track starts to level out, the car will compress heavily, gain a ton of grip, and that's our chance to turn in. You're going to want to do your braking before that. A lot of times the braking or the lifting will happen just at the bottom of the downhill, and as the car compresses, we're going to turn down to our apex to tuck in one more time against the gutter of the last corner's curb. Now as we turn in and get towards the curb, the car should start to push just a little bit, so you're going to have exaggerated grip on the compression. Then you'll start to lose a little bit of that grip as you approach the apex, but that grip's going to come back with a big amount of camber right at the end of this curb and help you finish the corner off before finally spinning you out up onto the front straightaway. So there are 2 points where the car will gain grip, right at turn in and right at the apex, and there are 2 points where the car will lose grip, and that's just before the apex and at track out because of the elevation through this corner. If you can learn to trust where the car will have grip and where the car won't have grip, that will help you maximize the downhill the most. Now that we've come up onto the front straightaway, the elevation will wash the car out to the left really, really quickly, and there is some curb on the exit here, but it is that ridged, rippled curb that can float the car just at the exit of the right-hander. So if you're going to cross onto that curb, just be prepared to straighten your hands up and make sure that the car doesn't spin on you, coming onto the front straightaway. So there's a very quick and busy lap of Lime Rock. Now let's jump inside a car and see how quick it happens. This is a 2018 Audi RS3 LMS TCR, so it's a proper race car built by Audi. Front-wheel drive, as all TCR cars are, about 300 horsepower. Race tires, lots of aero, so it's a pretty trick race car, and it pairs with Lime Rock really, really well because of how well it carries momentum. So we're actually going to take 2 laps here of Lime Rock Park because things come at you so quickly. So starting our first flying lap, we're going to brake and angle the car across the track down towards that first apex curb. This is our decreasing radius through Big Bend, letting the car wash out just about a half a car width before climbing back up on that second apex curb to finish the corner off. Now we're going to take the racing line, turning in early for the left-hander and getting down to that super late apex right at the end of the curb, and then again tossing the car back to the right for the right-hander, tracking all the way out to the left but being sure not to touch the exit curbing. Little bit of a moment to breathe down No Name Straight and then getting into the uphill. Now watch, the uphill happens much later in the corner than you realize. There's the uphill as it finally catches the front axle of the car and helps me finish the corner. We'll see it again in just about a minute, but now into West Bend, prioritizing the apex speed to get through as quickly as possible. Now through the bridge, getting our braking done in the downhill, using the compression to turn in. There's the float and there's the last bit of grip. You saw the car just change direction as the grip came to me through the apex. We'll take it for one more lap, and again, all the way on the left side of the screen, our brake markers, you'll see right about the 2, I start to cheat the car across the track and join up against this curb. That keeps me nice and tight to the inside, washing out about a half a car width, then lifting to tuck the nose for that curb, powering out to the outside. One more time through the left-hander, down to the grass, out about a half a car width, and then back down to a second late apex. Right here's the moment to slow the car down, and then back to maintenance throttle to power through the right-hander into No Name Straight. Now this time for the uphill, keep an eye out for that white line. You're going to see my left side tires end up across it, but my right side tires inside of it. Our left side right there, and I get the car just back on track in time to miss the grass. Now braking before the turn and getting back on power through the middle of the West Bend here before one more climb through the downhill, dropping a bunch of stories, using the compression to turn in. Looks like it floats, but then it hooks there just at the very end to keep me on the track. Whew, that's 2 laps of Lime Rock Park. So those are my tips for Lime Rock Park, which brings us to our scores, and we're going to kick off with our fun factor. I'm going to give it a 8. I think this track is super fun. It's not a lot of variety, so it may not be everyone's flavor, but I think the fact that you just kind of get your momentum swinging, and the faster you go, the faster it comes at you. It's just so much fun. Then we have our risk factor, and for risk, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 there. And mostly because a lot of the track has terrain that really works with you and allows you to go faster through a lot of the corners than you may be able to if everything were perfectly flat, which means when you fall off the track, you don't have the terrain helping you anymore. So you tend to go a little further than you think when you go off, especially if you go off maybe at 1 or in the uphill, downhill sections. And finally, our technicality. I'm only going to give it a 5 on technicality because I don't know that there's a lot that's a huge challenge here at Lime Rock Park. A lot of the corners feel very similar. The challenge is just repeating lap after lap after lap because it is happening so fast. A majority of any car that you can bring here nowadays will lap under a minute, which just means things come flying at you, and being consistent is hard for that long a time going at that pace. Executing it really is not that hard on a single lap. So my overall score is going to be an 8 for Lime Rock Park. I absolutely love this place, and one of my favorite parts about it is it's one of the tracks that you show up to and you know you're on motorsport's hallowed ground. It just has one of the coolest ambiances of any track you can go to, and oh, by the way, it's super fast and super fun to lap, so 8. So that does it for Lime Rock Park. We do offer coaching packages here at ASM, everything from remote coaching all the way up through private trackside coaching and a whole lot more. So you can visit our website, get a hold of us there. But otherwise, I hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.